I mean, you guys are real familiar with each other after making this movie, I'm sure.
We both got groomed this morning by the same groomer.
Okay, so the connection is there. I'm curious, as a writer, what comes first? Did you have these characters floating around in your head, or did you have the story, or is it both kind of at the same time? Did one inform the other? How did that work?
Both, I guess. I mean, I think there's always... I think even when I think I'm writing plot, I'm still always writing character. I think that's kind of the only way I know how to build stories, is by figuring out who the people are, and then that, you know, their destiny comes from character is destiny, to coin a phrase. But you know, very specifically with this, the very first spark of it was sitting down and trying to wrap my head around. I'd done 4 movies with non-professional actors, which I love doing, and in some ways, you know, was a comfort zone for me. But of course, you know, I thought at some point in my life I'd like to try my hand at the other thing, and so I started to think, well, what would it be? I think, you know, I felt like I had to write differently. Just at the kernel of it, I had to conceive the thing a little differently. And so I started to think, well, who would I? All right, if I can have my druthers, if I can have my you know, if I get to live the dream, who do I want to work with? And Kevin is somebody I've been a fan of for 20 years and known. I don't know, few now. But so he was one of the first people I thought of, and Guy was somebody who I'd just had a breakfast meeting with a few years earlier, and found fascinating. And I think as soon as I thought of the two of you in a movie together, I was already laughing. I was halfway there, and so really started building from there. In retrospect, like, the chances that I would actually get the two of them, who are both such crazy busy working actors, to come and do this were not that high. But so I feel so blessed and so lucky that this you know, crazy fantasy I started to have in a coffee shop a few years ago is now this thing.
Yeah, you did it.
It came together. Got lucky.
Kevin, let me ask you, what was your initial reaction when Andrew offered you the part? You read the script and saw this kind of eccentric character you'd be playing.
Well, I guess I felt the same sense of destiny you were just referring to. I felt a sense of destiny, because I've always wanted to work with Andrew. You know, in my wildest dreams as an actor, Andrew Bujalski would write a part for me, and you know, it didn't come out of thin air. I mean, I guess it was a product of our you know, association over the years, and when it finally came, as if I expected it to happen, which I didn't, but when it did, it was real nice. It was a real nice feeling. You know, it was like, you know, there are things that are possible if you know, you can grow something if you allow things to happen. You know, it just sort of grew. You know, it's like gardening. You know, when you are, I guess, diligent, or you have integrity in your what you want. It seemed to come about very naturally, you know, but there was no guarantee that would happen. I didn't know that he would, you know, be thinking about me after the times that we hang out, you know. But you know, if this had come about and someone else was in it, I would still be interested in seeing it, you know, because it's him, because it came from him.
Yeah. Well, Andrew, you mentioned casting Guy along with Kevin, and of course Kobe Smulders is in the film as well. And I was just curious, Kevin, for you, working with Guy and Kobe, and what that experience was like for you, kind of finding these characters and their relationship together.
Well, you know, working with those guys, I wasn't really that familiar with Kobe beforehand, and I knew Guy from, you know, some of his films. I really loved him in The King's Speech, particularly. Even though that's not one of his, you know, he plays lead roles and things. That wasn't a lead role for him, but it was a piece of work by him that I really responded to and that I really liked, and yeah, you know, being in a movie with him seemed as unlikely to me as it might have to you, and so.
Unlikely in what way? Why?
I don't know. You know, there were certain actors that I end up sometimes in a room with that I'm like, this wasn't supposed to happen, you know. You know, I work with a lot of the times other actors like myself, you know, and now you know, I thought that the contrast between us would do a lot of the work for us, you know.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was all there in the script, you know. And I know that guys, you know, we're all professionals, and we're all sort of open-minded professionals, you know. You know, this script was, it's unlike anything I've done before. It's unlike, I guess, anything that Guy's done before, and we just, you know, we were all game for it because of our belief in Andrew.
Yeah. Andrew, you mentioned that you had a desire with this film to work with more seasoned actors, professional actors that you hadn't worked with before. On set, directing them, what difference did you feel? Did you have to adjust yourself as a filmmaker? Was there a learning curve that you overcame?
Sure, I don't know if I overcame it or not, but yeah, you know, I think any professional or non-professional, no two actors approach it the same way. So in some ways, that's kind of what the job of directing is just trying to figure out who you're dealing with and how best to communicate with them and how to you know, what you can do, if anything, to help them do their best work on screen. But yeah, I mean, there is a different, in some ways I think it's kind of, I had to often come at the opposite angle that I'm used to. A lot of times with non-professionals, if they're good, and I don't think, you know, the fact that I had worked with non-professionals in the past doesn't, I was still working with people who were naturally good actors. It wasn't just, you know, grab somebody off the street, you know, it was always people who had, I think, a real talent, but not necessarily experience. Mm-hmm. And what comes from that, usually, you know, somebody who can get the honesty part pretty easily, and then with them you're usually working to give it a little more shape and a little more to make things perhaps just a little bit more direct, so the scene holds together. Whereas with these guys, you know, who are so seasoned. You know, and Kobe was such an extraordinary find for us. So, you know, these are people who do this day in, day out, and like polish, directness. These things are not a problem. This is all there when you get there. And so, if anything, for me, I'm kind of working backwards to what I'm used to. Is like, well, can we take some of the polish off of this? Can we get this a little more indirect? Because to me, that's always what I'm interested in. Is you know, I think on some level, I still probably think of myself as kind of a documentary. Like I'm a documentary filmmaker who's too lazy to make documentaries, so I just make you guys come to me, and then you do it, and I'll sit here and shoot it. I don't even shoot it, but I'll sit here and watch somebody else shoot it. But I need a little bit of mess and chaos in there, and that, you know, with professionals, the challenge is kind of getting back to the chaos a little bit.
To that point, to what Andrew was just speaking about, working with actors. As an actor, seasoned actor yourself, and worked with some of the great directors of all time, Martin Scorsese, Tony Scott. What are you looking for from a director when you're working on set, and what was that experience like working with Andrew? What did you find from him that you needed as an actor?
Well, you're always looking for a you know, with an actor-director relationship, the actor wants someone to work with someone that they trust, enough to be uninhibited. And you know, my hope going into this was that I would be as good as the non-actors in his other films, because I can appreciate, you know, the lack of inhibitions and the lack of pretension in a so-called non-professional actor. There's sometimes they give the best performances, you know, and it reminds a trained actor what it really means to be in the moment. And I thought the thing I've always loved about Andrew's films is that those moments are, his films are just so rich with those moments that I was hoping that, you know, something would rub off on me by working with him, you know, you know, whether or not that happened, I don't know. But I know I had a good time. I had fun. I felt like I was having, you know, a truthful experience. You know, you know, I'm always, you know, I'm kind of wary of false notes. You know, like, man, that sounded like, you know, even in this interview, like, you know, I'm checking myself in terms of like, that sounded like bullshit. You know, the stuff coming out of my own mouth, it's like, oh, I'm trying to keep up with the form of the interview, and it's like I'm just spouting stuff. And and you worry about that as an actor on the set when the camera's rolling. It's like, wait a minute, just the fact that you're aware of the camera. You know,
as a trained actor, is that the hardest part, to really lift off all that stuff of knowing the awareness of being on a movie set?
For me, it is. You know, it's you know, I'm glad that I've gotten to be in the business this long, because it's taken this long to do away with even just, you know, a quarter of that of those hang-ups. You know, and then there are some actors who get in there and they don't have that problem at all. But I've always had to, you know, come up with ways to distract myself, you know, and pretend that the camera's not there, and to pretend that we're not acting. But there was a real minimum of that kind of thing on this project, and I don't know why. I think it's just because I trusted my director, you know, and I trusted the material, and you know, I guess I just at a point in my life where I've processed a lot of those insecurities, and I just don't have. I'm just too tired to be insecure about that stuff, and there was enough, you know, substance in the material in this movie to be present enough to not be worried that I was acting, you know, I guess that's you know, once it gets to that point. I don't know if we've ever talked about Alan Watts, you know, and Alan Watts, the philosopher, and he talks about how when a body part is functioning properly, you're not aware of that organ. It's just doing its job, you know. Whereas if you can see your eye, it means you have cataract, you know. And on this job, it was just for the most part a pretty crystal clear path, and we were just in character, you know, comfortably in the moment, about 95% of the time. And I mean, we can talk all day about why that was or wasn't the case, but I think it was just because of the confidence of Andrew's writing and of his direction. I mean, he didn't really, you know, you hear about directors who don't, you know, they're really hands off, like Woody Allen or something. You know, like they don't really tell you anything. They don't direct. You never really, you know, it was all there, you know.
Yeah, that's great. Well, you can tell in the film. And thank you guys so much. It was a really interesting and candid and very fun interview. So it was very great to talk to both of you guys. Thank you so much.
Thanks.